Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of Miranda Derrick, related to a Netflix documentary that was recently released. It's a docu-series. I'll talk a little bit about that docu-series, some of the backstory about all of this, right after the intro here. So let's go ahead and roll that. Alright, for those of you who do not know, Netflix's recent 3-part series, Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult, uncovers the alleged cult-like practices and activities surrounding TikTok dancers affiliated with 7M films. The heart of Dancing for the Devil revolves around Miranda, Wilking, now Derrick, a talented dancer and content creator who, along with her sister Melanie, gained fame on TikTok as the Wilking sisters. Their dance videos earned them millions of followers and lucrative brand partnerships. Miranda's journey took a turn when she signed with Los Angeles-based 7M Films, a talent agency owned by Robert Shin, who also served as a pastor at the Shekinah Church. Beneath the glamorous facade of their Hollywood-esque lifestyle, dancers in 7M found themselves isolated from their families, reportedly under the sway of Shin's influence. Former employees and church members have accused Shin of exerting control over these dancers. The Dancing for the Devil docu-series delves into the emotional turmoil experienced by Miranda's family, particularly her sister Melanie and their parents Kelly and Dean, as they grapple with Miranda's estrangement and their attempt to reach out to her. The documentary also features accounts from other former 7M dancers seeking justice against Shin for various allegations, from exerting control over their lives and finances to various degrees of sexual inappropriateness. Shekinah pastor and founder Robert Shin is no stranger to being at the center of controversy, with him telling his congregation that accusations of his cultish behaviors have been around since the foundation of the church. Shin founded Shekinah Church as a religious community that held a special safety and familiarity for many Korean Americans, but allegations of exploitation and control have emerged from these former members who described promises of love and support that were never fulfilled. Shin's ventures extended beyond just the church, with businesses like cafes and real estate companies often staffed by church members who received minimal pay for being overworked through long hours. 7M Films, established in 2021, signed successful social media dancers like Miranda and James Derrick, with Shin reportedly exerting significant influence over their creative endeavors as well. Legal battles have ensued, with Shin filing lawsuits against any opposing former church member, while former 7M dancers have countersued, alleging fraud, forced labor, and even human trafficking. These cases are set to go to trial in 2025. Many former 7M members have recounted being indoctrinated with the belief that cutting ties with their families was necessary for spiritual salvation, a practice that's fairly consistent with Shin's teaching from the past as well. Despite the controversy, Miranda Derrick remains affiliated with 7M Films, maintaining a presence on social media with occasional interactions with her family, albeit with restrictions on discussing 7M or the church. Many people are feeling a level of falseness around these interactions. Many, including her family, are also concerned for her psychological and physical well-being, as the severity and extent to which a cult and cult leader can exert power over an individual can leave lasting effects on both the individual and their immediate social and relationship circles. And in today's video, I'll be examining the body language displayed by Miranda in a number of social media posts related to the contents of the docu-series. We'll be looking for any indicators of alarm, exploring the psychological patterns of people who find themselves in a cult, and touching briefly on the importance of asking questions and staying connected if you find yourself in similar sorts of situations of control and indoctrination. That's, I feel, enough of the backstory for this. Let's go ahead and dive into these clips. It's a number of clips collected across social media, across time here, that kind of shows the evolution of Miranda Derrick, or Miranda Wilking, as she stays implanted in the 7M production and in the church as well. So let's just dive in.
Hey, you guys, I just wanted to hop on really quick and address the date, January 21st. It just keeps popping up. I know my mom has been stuck on January 21st, and a lot of you have been saying that I cut off all communication completely with my family. I just want to say that that is a complete lie. Has there been less communication? Yes, because we are going through a lot. But
I'm gonna go ahead and pause here. So obviously this video is very much an impromptu feeling sort of social media video. There's not a set to it. She's in her car. She's not wearing special clothes. So there's not that level of control and intentionality behind the video to begin with. So with that in mind, the possibilities of her doing this spur of the moment increase a little bit. Now, that also being said, if she were to be controlled in this area, which many people are concerned about, they're concerned that Miranda is not having the freedom to say what she wants to. And so these videos where she's offering explanations to things people are picking them apart. So hopefully today we'll be able to look at some of these more important clips or more crucial clips to be able to see, is she actually leaking any form of indicators that should be alarming to us? Or is this something that she's very much in control of, or at least feels she is in control of? Anything along those lines. So what I will note is that her tone seems fairly relaxed. It doesn't feel like she's forcing anything. I don't hear any odd verbal patterns. She's not offering a lot of ums, uhs. There's no stutters. She's not looking off to the side of the camera, checking in with anybody. It feels fairly fluid so far. However, I will say that she is offering a fair amount of defensive nonverbal communication during this time, with the palms facing forward. For those of you who do not know, if you're watching a person speak, anytime that you see palms starting to face forward, it's usually related to a level of defensiveness, and that could be for a number of reasons. It just indicates that the person speaking feels the need to have their palms creating a level of a barrier in defense. Now, if it's palms down, that's more dominating. If it's palms up, that's more submissive or open. So we're seeing this already come out with a lot of this palms forward facing nonverbal communication, letting us know that this is somewhat on the defensive side of things. We'll continue on through this, listen to some of their verbal patterns as well as watching their nonverbal patterns to hopefully understand what state of mind they're in with this and understand over time how that state of mind changes. Anyways, let's continue.
but to say that I cut off complete communication is a lie. I have proof that we have spoken since that date. I have text messages, I have DMs, I have proof of phone calls, I have voice memos proving that we have talked.
Okay, so we're having a lot of affirmative nonverbal communication here that is synchronized with what she's saying. So I'm not watching this feeling like she's blowing smoke about this. It feels as if she does have this proof of times that they have interacted and talked. Now, what I find fascinating in that, and that's not, for me, that's not really even an argument. It just seems as though, yes, she does have this proof. What I find fascinating is that she's really harping on this complete word. She uses complete control and variations of that phrasing multiple times within this very short period. And it's that complete aspect that is fascinating to me, that she wants to try to hang this entire system of concern on the phrasing of complete, that she completely cut off everybody, that there was complete this, complete that, and that's not the case. Because true, very rarely is it a complete situation, especially in these realms of early culthood behaviors. It's very influenced, but with enough autonomy to make the people that are being controlled feel like they are not being controlled. So with that harping on the complete side of things is fascinating, and then she dives in and starts saying, like, I have all of these different things to prove that I didn't cut off all ties with my family. She even offers the qualifier herself that it did greatly decrease. We, as the viewer, can fairly reliably assume then that that greatly diminished is the most publicly acceptable version of the story. So with that, we can fairly reasonably rely on the fact that Miranda has at this point already cut off a very substantial amount of communication, and the fact that she has kept track of all of the points of interaction with her family actually hammers that in a little bit further. Which, for those of you who did not watch the documentary, I do suggest you go and watch that. That'll help add some context to some of the things that I'll be talking about, especially in light of Robert and his behavior, the pastor or the cult leader and his behavior. If you would like to be able to go and check that out, I do suggest it. But in his sermons of the time, he was regularly talking about how you would have to fully cut out your family, as I mentioned, even in the backstory portion of this. That drive and push to cut out family was very regular. She's admitting to it here, though trying to dress it up to public perception of things. We're seeing the defense of nonverbal communication. However, I do not see any indicators of her flashing levels of fear or concern that she might be controlled or influenced by an immediate personnel. It seems as though for the immediate little bubble that she's existing in right here, she seems to be in control of what she's doing and what she's saying, albeit with these little outliers that we've already talked about. Anyways, let's continue.
I wanted to continue moving forward with Wilking sisters. I wanted to continue that relationship with Melanie. But I just...
Still more defensive, trying to calm people down as they're saying what's going on. Because again, with the flow of things, she just kind of bounced. She just left. She just departed from the Wilking sisters dance system, which there were many fans for. And so she's having this defensiveness and the desire to calm the people down for what they're saying. And she's saying, I wanted to come back to, and there's this past tense. So at this point, with watching this video, we already know that this isn't actually an option for her. Ergo, the verbal phrasing of wanted. That verbal phrasing of wanted lets us know that in her mind, it's already cemented as something in the past. It can't be something of the future. It can't be something of the present. It is in the past. I wanted to do XYZ. Along with that, we're seeing a pretty substantial no shake in there while she's saying, I wanted to do the stuff with the Wilking sisters. And that substantial no shake in there could be misconstrued, I feel, as a point of desynchronization, where she's saying one thing positive, but shaking her head no at the same time. I don't want to be able to buy into that due to the macro nature of that movement. It's very large. She's able to control that very easily. Again, for those of you watching, the smaller the movement, the less likely it is to be controlled intentionally. So the fact that it's very large, that lets us know that it is likely fairly controlled, which, if it is fairly controlled, is likely a relation to the unbelievable nature of what's being said. You would not believe, ergo the no shake in there. So we're seeing that come in there. That would actually be synchronized, but her verbal patterning is the revealing factor here, letting us know that even at this point, the coming together of the Wilking sister brand is not really an option with how she's viewing it. So let's continue on through this.
I just asked if she could give me a couple weeks just to collect my thoughts and kind of figure out how I could continue Wilking sisters, but on new terms. Because I also wanted to pursue, I was going into singing a little bit more. I also just moved in with James. So just figuring that out.
Now, what strikes me as fascinating with this portion is that she says with new terms, and then she starts unpacking that with new terms, offering some qualifiers for that. Now, nobody asked for the qualifiers. Obviously, this is just a video, so nobody's like demanding the qualifiers, but she felt the need to add those qualifiers in. Now, those qualifiers are fascinating to me because it, again, is just unrequested, and that offering up of unrequested information can be an indicator of a person feeling nervous about what they've presented. Sometimes, and this is not a universal law by any stretch of the imagination, as much of nonverbal communication is, sometimes people who are lying and are not comfortable with lying will say the lie, and then they will immediately thereafter offer as many qualifiers as they can to back up that lie without the person ever asking or without it ever being requested of them. And that packing of a narrative, that packing of details is an indicator of nervousness. It can be an indicator of nervousness due to it being a lie. It can also be an indicator of nervousness due to the person who's speaking not feeling like the people they're speaking to will believe what they're saying. So it's just an indicator of nervousness. And in this area, both of these would make sense. Either one, it could be a lie. She's packing that narrative. Perhaps there's more behind it than what she's saying here. So she's offering these extra details just to try to make sure we believe this partial truth or lie. Or on the other side of that coin, it would also make sense that at this point, she is saying something that she knows the general population will not believe. So she feels the inner need to really hammer home points to convince people. So both of those are possible. The only way that we'll be able to have a better perspective for it is if there are any other portions where she offers better clarification for things. And fortunately for us, there are more sources, there are more video clips that do show her offering some clarifications, which we will get to at the end of this little segment of this video here. It's the next portion coming up here. Regardless, we're picking up some of these nonverbal patterns, some of these verbal patterns, and understanding kind of where her mindset is, at least at the point of filming this video. And it develops. Let's continue.
And she was cool with it. She asked if it was okay to post, a statement on TikTok.
Gonna pause here. There's a lot of verbal difficulty. And then we're also seeing a number of nonverbal tells that are fascinating to me. She has the no shake in there, and it is fairly constant, again, still, but it's also fairly macro, could be controlled, so the possibility of it being a desynchronization point is less likely. Still a possibility, but less likely. Coupling that with the verbal difficulty that suddenly came up in there. And then we're also seeing a number of scattered about lip compressions that come in as she's saying the various sentences. And those lip compressions can be an indicator of a person biting back words that they feel like they shouldn't say or are not acceptable to say. At the extreme polar end of this can be because a person is lying and they feel like they shouldn't be telling a lie, so they're literally non-verbally biting back those words. Regardless, that little pop of nonverbal communication around there with her patterns strikes me as interesting. It seems as though this is a hot point. I would keep that in mind as a possible red flag as we continue on through, that perhaps what she's saying here isn't actually what played out. Let's continue.
And I agreed. That sounded great. She posted it just, telling all of our fans that Miranda's going to be taking a little bit of time off. But yeah, I wanted to get it back together and, post as usual.
I'm gonna go ahead and pause there in this little portion that's fast forwarding here. She's just mentioning a pile of dates and times that she met with her family to prove that she hadn't cut off, again, that complete contact. It was occasional contact, which we've already visited that. During that time, she said that she wanted to get it back together. We're seeing a little bit of a lopsided shrug in there, a no shake in there. We're seeing a fair amount of lopsided activity on her face, as well as one side of her face is a little bit more active than the other side. Now that all indicates to me that there was more psychological processing around that lopsided display of emotion. Oftentimes in areas like this, where we're looking at that and we're trying to pay attention to these smaller nuances, if it's synchronized across both halves of the body, that indicates authenticity. If we're seeing these lopsided or disjointed displays of things, it can be an indicator of a person forcing or faking the emotional state that they're presenting, which in turn can be an indicator that they are forcing or faking a level of their story, the verbs that they're presenting, aka lying. It's far from a hard, fast rule, but as we collect more of these little indicators, it does help us understand a little bit more about her state of mind as she's going through this. Regardless, let's continue.
So, yes, there's a lot that my family and I need to work through, but I'm excited to just move past all of this.
We're seeing a substantial postural change at the end of this reading off of all of these dates and times, and we see her lean back, she exposes her neck, and this exasperation comes into her voice as she says, "So," and has a substantial breath in there. There are a number of reasons for this, not the least of which is that she just listed off a whole long list of things that she was reading, so taking a breath at the end. The postural change indicates a shift from reading to speaking again to the camera, so that again on a smaller level lets us know that at least there At very least, it's two different scripted videos. She relied on the script and now she's relying on another script to talk to the camera, or she was relying on the scripted portions to read things and now this portion to the camera is not scripted. Ergo, the shifting of the nonverbal posture. So we're seeing that come in here. This is about to be done. We'll talk about kind of everything that we saw in this little thing and then we'll move on to the next one.
This, I just want to address that saying that we haven't communicated within the past year is a lie. We have communicated, and I believe that my family wants to move forward too. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys that update. Thank you for all the support for James and I. Love you guys. Thank you.
So a fair bit of uncertainty in there with the nose shaking and the shoulder shrugging. I would not necessarily buy that. Even Miranda at this time feels that her family wants to move past all of this as well. That doesn't seem to be what her nonverbal communication is presenting to us, with that level of uncertainty coming in with the shrugging and the constant nose shaking. However, for the entirety of this little video clip here, we're seeing a fairly upbeat, charismatic Miranda. She doesn't seem to be presenting any form of negative emotion, be that sadness or fear or anger or frustration in this. Perhaps there could be an understanding of some of that through some of the smaller ones, like for instance with the lip compressions in there. That could be an indicator of frustration with the biting back. I don't see enough of the nonverbal tells to say for sure that she's feeling frustrated in this area. And this is fairly early on in the interactions of things. As things continue to escalate, we will see this energy shift. And in the very next clip that we're going to look at, this is addressing the breaking apart of the Wilking sisters. And we're going to now see a little bit more information around that and a different emotional state. And we'll talk about that as we see it.
I've been seeing a lot of things being talked about as facts here on social media, and a lot of people who, I'm not going to mention any names, but have created this narrative of my life just to make money off of me. And like I've said before, I really don't want to make these things public and share these things on social media, but I'm being forced to speak my truth. So let's go.
Gonna go ahead and pause here. So in this first little bit, we're already seeing this is a little bit more curated of a video. She's not in her car. She's at a more set area. She's wearing a fairly light color on a fairly white background. And for those of you who have been on the channel for a minute, we've seen countless apologies of people trying to use this whitewashed motif for their videos to be able to garner a level of sympathy and garner a level of people assuming that they're more pure because they're wearing white. And so there's the possibility that that form of manipulation is coming in here. I don't know enough contextually to say that that is the case. Also, she's not apologizing for anything here, so there's not really as much of a need to appear as pure, but it is something that I want to make note of. It is white background, mostly white clothes, could be this whitewashed, I want to be pure appearing situation. Now she's going to start giving us some of the details as to why she left the Wilking sisters. And it's interesting the contrast from what we just saw seconds ago from a less planned, more impromptu video. Let's watch.
She completely ignored everything I said. She decided to schedule us for more brand deals without letting me know. She said that I left her stranded with other brand deals that we did. I didn't get paid for the brand deals that we did when we were together. And honestly,
I will say, throughout the entirety of this, I am seeing a substantial amount of activity around the corners of the nose here. And that activity around the corners of the nose can be fairly reliably attributed to the feeling of disgust. Anger will also have this as well. You can see the corners of the nose having more activation, in that the rest of the face is not indicating anger with the lowering of the eyebrows and drawing together, where you'll see this activity in the glabella region up here. We're not seeing that come out with this, so then we're falling back onto perhaps this is a level of disgust, which if there's a level of disgust in regards to the relationship that she had with her sister for the Wilking sister channel, then that highlights a little bit more of the dynamic between the two of them. Now, what we're left with as the viewer asking is, which should we then believe? Should we believe this more disgusted display that Miranda's giving here, or should we believe the earlier display that was more gracious that we just saw moments ago, where this disgust wasn't as active, but there were some of these possible red flags scattered about it. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more here at the end after we hear this recounting of what Miranda says, the situation of working with her sister on the Wilking sisters, what that situation really was. So let's see.
And honestly, that's the reason why I was just over working together as Wilking sisters.
I'm gonna go ahead and pause there. So that was her whole reason. There was perhaps long hours, some business decisions and moves were made without both interacting, and all of those things sound realistic and reasonable for sure, that could absolutely exist, especially in an area where it's a team of people trying to head up one channel. There's gonna be a dynamic of one person heads up a little bit more, or the other person heads up a little bit more. One person takes more charge, one person doesn't, one person is more of the talent, one is more of the back end. There's obviously going to be some dynamic differences. So with that, I didn't see any indicators that were really pushing me to believe that those dynamics didn't exist. There wasn't a level of desynchronization, and their storyline, there's nothing else out there informationally that I was able to track down that really disqualifies what she said there. Also, I don't actually necessarily believe that the first clip and the second clip disagree as to why she broke up with the Wilking sister brand. But what I do find fascinating is that the aggression in this one has increased. She's no longer being charismatic during this. She's taken on more of an aggressive tone. The phrasing that she uses is more attacking towards her sister. And this aggression, in regards to what she's involved in, can serve as a red flag, because as somebody feels more threatened for something that they themselves might not actually feel secure in, anger can be one of the things that initially comes out. If you're secure in an area and somebody threatens that area, your response to that is not to get angry and lash out at the person who's making baseless claims, because you're secure, you know. But if a person's making claims and your response is to become more and more aggressive, angry, and attacking with your verbiage and nonverbal communication, that can be an indicator that there's a level of uncertainty or insecurity within the person themselves. So there is that possibility that's coming out here. I do find that fascinating that the first clip that we saw there, a lot more charismatic, a lot more accepting and gracious, and everything's going fine, to now a little bit further down the road, the family has been pushing a little bit harder and picking a little bit harder at the possibility of this cult, and now some aggression is starting to creep out here. It's just fascinating. Now we're going to move to this clip of Miranda inviting her family, her mom and dad, into this establishment, and we'll start to see even more of this nonverbal shift from this first clip that we saw to this one now. So let's see how this goes.
We are live. We're in Detroit, Michigan. This is my husband, James. This is my mom, Kelly, and my dad, Dean. Since they wanted to make our lives public, we're gonna go live.
Okay, so now we're hearing a specific tonal shift. The second video had already started this tonal shift. You could hear it with the trailing up of the end of the sentences, and it's this tone that indicates that she is now fed up, and that there's a level of aggression and frustration that's coming into her voice there. And then we're also seeing a fairly substantial mouth shrug in there, with a lot of activity in there around the nose as well, without it reaching the top half of her face to be an indicator of frustration. That activity around her nose is an indicator of disgust. A mouth shrug in there lets us know that it's a level of uncertainty. It literally means the same of a I don't know. That's the facial version of that with the, I don't know. We'll see that coming in there. Now, paying attention to the parents' behavior during that, you could see the uncertainty in the entirety of their body with the gait that they're using walking up to Miranda. So the context for this is that they show up at the facility that they're going to be meeting at here. I believe it's a hotel. And with that, she immediately, as soon as they walk into the building, pulls out her phone and starts recording. So you're seeing this uncertainty from the parents with the gate that they're using to walk up to Miranda, who is now live streaming this entire situation, which the live stream is a power play. And even Miranda herself says that, oh, my family wanted to make this public. Well, fine, I'm going to make this public. So it's an aggressive lashback at behavior that has already been displayed by the family. If you watch the docuseries, you are able to get the context of what went into the family's decision to make things public. And for those of you who have not watched, the complexities that go into that, to watching a loved one be involved in a circle that is controlling, it's damaging, it's unhealthy to them. It leaves the social circle of the person who is now isolated feeling very helpless and unsure of what to do. And it's that emotional state that fuels the family to go public with things. Now, whether or not that was the right decision is questionable in and of itself, but that's what they've done. Miranda's lashing back out about that. Now, what I find fascinating with this, of course, there's the nonverbal communication that's going along with, but again, what we're seeing further escalation of aggression. This is further down the line of these allegations. This is further down the line of the families poking in and digging into Miranda's business and to the other dancers. Other families are getting involved in these other dancers' lives, and we're seeing that aggression come out more and more. Again, is that aggression there because of defensiveness, because of a level of uncertainty, or is that aggression there because they are really, really certain in what they're saying and doing, and they're just upset at anybody else who's challenging them? Both of those are distinct possibilities. However, there's still a little bit left of this video to go, so let's watch.
Do you guys have anything to say to the live stream?
I love you, Miranda, and I miss you.
Yeah. Love you. We're excited to see you in person. Okay. More details to come. But yeah, we're going to have a family meeting.
All right, so during that time, we see a number of lip compressions again coming from Miranda. The family says their little greetings, that they love her, and that they're excited to see her. She does not respond to those. She just simply says okay. And throughout that, we're not seeing any activity on the upper half of her face, and we're seeing exclusively lip compressions and small amounts of activity in the corners of her nose on the lower half of her face. Those lip compressions, again, biting back either of words or emotions that they feel like they shouldn't say or can't say, they're inappropriate for the time, what have you. That's showing up there. The small amounts of activity around the nose indicate a possible level of disgust, and the lack of verbal acknowledgement as to what her family said is another indicator of that frustration and animosity between the two groups of people. Again, further hammering home this increase of aggression in regards to two different lifestyles that are being challenged. One challenging out of concern, the other one perhaps challenging out of success. Miranda has found a level of substantial success with the 7M productions. So there's all sorts of possibilities that are coming in here. Regardless, we're seeing it play out non-verbally. Now we're on to the last little clip of this, which is very, very recently released, and it's in regards to the documentary itself. And we'll notice some of the changes in the non-verbal patterns of things, as this is a very obviously set video. Let's watch.
Hey guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I just wanted to hop on here really quick and first of all say thank you so much to everybody who's been so supportive during this time.
Very stilted and desynchronized nonverbal communication. We're seeing initially a little shrug in there. Perhaps there's some insecurity around saying hi to everybody, something along those lines. But then making note of a few things. Again, all white, white background, white everything, possibility of being controlled and wanting to appear as pure in a situation. There is definitely that possibility. It's something that I'm making note of. Along with that, we're feeling that this is something that is more rehearsed or at least more thought through than the even the initial car video. What we're going to then hear is a curated form of information. Along with that, we're hearing a very controlled tone verbally. There's no fluctuation in that. We're not hearing any stressors indicated by pitch or indicated by force behind. All of this is just indicating that this is a very controlled version of Miranda that she's presenting here. So let's see if there's anything that seeps out in this little blip. This isn't even her addressing the situation. This is her addressing that she wrote something about the situation. So there are some lenses that we're working through here. There's a level of removal from the actual subject itself that she has here. So it's going to be difficult, but perhaps there's something here. At the very end, we'll talk about what we see.
Time. In the next couple slides, I've included my statement of this documentary that's just been released. I can't go into too much detail because of legal purposes, but I just wanted to add my side of the story a little bit. Thank you so much for taking a read. Have a great day. Bye.
Okay, so with that, again, we're seeing this repeated come back to middle here. This is a controlled, coached thing to see somebody who's not sure what to do with their hands. One of the things that they're reliably told to do is just fold them in front. So we're seeing that come in. We're seeing the rest of it is very coached, very overt nonverbal communication, while desynchronized. The entirety of the little clip itself was very put together, very fluid, both verbally and non-verbally. The smaller things that come out just let us know that there was a level of nervousness centered around that. And in context with the other clips, it does not fit with what has been displaying the entire time, which lets us know that there's a shift of approach. And that is also indicated in the background, for those of you who have not watched the docuseries, by a shift in approach of Robert Shin's preaching. He shifted from "you need to overtly cut out your family" to "we need to cut out your family and your friends" to a more covert degree. They don't need to know that they're being cut out. We'll keep that under wraps here, but we're cutting them out. And so that shift of tone, that shift of presentation also falls in line with what he was instructing at the time. So for me, looking at this, it seems as though Miranda is in a situation of control, as attributed by many other people outside of her specific situation that have similar situations with the same source. Indicators for that is the increased agitation and aggressiveness towards that control being challenged. She has changed her story, or she has added on to her story, and she has shown more anger, aggression, and disgust towards people who challenge that control, that system of functioning that she's in right now. And so with me, what it feels like is I don't believe that Miranda is at the point of realizing that she's in the situation that she's in. It feels as though she's still very much feeling that she's in the position she's in due to her wanting to be there, due to her feeling like it's her decision, due to her feeling like it's her best interest. And this is due in part to the brainwashing that can occur and regularly does occur. In fact, almost has to be. It's almost necessitated to occur in cultish behaviors. The cutting out of family, the lack of trust in your own decision making. You have to trust somebody who is more spiritual. In the case of cults, it's always somebody who is just more spiritual. The man of God is regularly referred to in this docuseries, and that's how Robert Shin was viewed. He has some special knowledge that nobody else can ever have access to because it's been given to him by God. She seems to still buy into this system of thinking created by Robert Shin, that he is a man of God, that God is something that has an effect on her life, and that the church that she's a part of is the reason, and her giving to that church, that was another huge facet of this docuseries, her giving to that church is the reason for her success. All that does is devalue anything that Miranda brings to the table. In the light of, in the realm of cults, and with Robert and the church that he leads, the desire to fully devalue the individual and make them fully dependent on both the cult leader or church leader and the cult itself or the church itself, that is a necessary portion of it. For those of you who are in these systems, the importance of asking questions, not only within the circle that you're in, but also outside of that circle as well, checking extraneous sources, anything that's not part of a bubble that you might feel like you're living in is massively, massively important. That asking of questions and being willing to push against the grain is huge in any time that you're a part of a group of people and they at any point tell you that you can't trust yourself, that you have to exclusively trust one of them or somebody that they appoint. That is an indicator of manipulation on a massive scale. One of the easiest things to do for people to control them is to devalue their ability to trust themselves. If you can't trust yourself, you have to trust somebody else. And if you're stuck in a system of thinking, the person to trust is the person in charge, and then you find yourself in a cult. So if you find these areas of thinking where they say, don't think about it yourself, just trust somebody else. Don't feel it yourself. Just trust somebody else. Don't do anything about it yourself because you can't be trusted. You have to trust somebody else. That's an immediate red flag that you are in the very first little remnants of a cult. Because from there, as soon as a cult leader, as soon as a cult system breaks down the individual's ability to think for themselves, they are no longer an individual. They are simply clay to be able to be formed to whatever that cult wants. Oftentimes, it's money, support, power, what have you. Very regularly, it's money. So, with that in mind, that's my analysis of this. I gave you the nonverbal reasons for it. I gave you my logical reasons for it. If you have any other disagreements with that, or if you have any other information that you would like to add to this, especially if it helps add clarity to the state of Miranda, if there's other footage that you would like me to take a look at, anything like that, just let me know. For those of you watching, since this is an ongoing case, it hasn't even hit the legal system as of yet, this video should not be used on any level for evidence or professional purposes. It's just entertainment and education, as I have said about all of the videos here on the internet, on YouTube. Do more research than just this video. So, with all of that being said, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.